Excellent. Okay.
And awesome. Perfect. Wonderful.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, I am sitting in front of greatness. I have one of the most I don't know if it's just the East Coast or if it's the West Coast
Or the whole universe, but here I
or
am.
yes, or the whole universe. Exactly.
Well, I'm thrilled to be here. We, as I'm sure will come up as we talk, we first met because of technology and novels, not even comic books, but we found we have many interests in common. I'm delighted to come on your program and talk about them.
I am super excited for you to be here. Um, and yeah,
As I'm sure will come up as we
I'm
talk.
just trying to. I have hear an echo, so I'm trying to figure out
Yeah,
what this
I have a
echo
bit of
is.
audio. I don't know what it is. There's some other audio channel coming through. I wonder if it's on my side. I hope not, but I'm going to check to make sure.
Super excited for you because I've muted. Well, I'm going to close this because I don't need that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what else could be making this exciting sound, but I don't. It's a time delay, I think, because I hear my own voice saying stuff that I already said. So let me just see if I can make it go away.
I thought it might have been um, my.
I just wonder if one of us might have the YouTube channel open on a web browser.
I did have it on open on a web browser, and I closed that out.
Okay,
It's
I don't
always
seem to
I
have.
always I always have technical difficulties where it's always something when I do a podcast. It never
Now,
goes smoothly. When I game, it's pretty smooth.
okay.
But when it's yeah, when it is this, but you know what? I think I might
Let's see what happens if I'm muted.
something when I do what? I think
Okay.
I might. Let's see what happens if I'm muted. Something when I do.
Okay. Great. All right. Well, I apologize to anyone who's been listening and hearing double. It doesn't mean you're, in fact, drunk or under the influence of hallucinogens. It was just too many speakers going at once. Or something. Yes. Well, sure. My pleasure. To anyone who's been listening and hearing double, it doesn't mean. That's weird. Now I'm starting to hear it again. Or the influence of hallucinogens. Just okay. Yeah. Sure. My pleasure. To anyone who's listening and that's weird. Now I'm starting to hear it again. And it's a delay of, I don't know, 10 seconds, something like that. Okay. Well, if it's something I'm doing, and I apologize in advance because I've never used Discord for a podcast before, so it could be something on my end. I just don't know what to do to make it go away. So apologies to anyone who's listening and annoyed. If it's something I'm doing, and I apologize because I've never used Discord for a podcast before, so it could be something on my end. I just to do things away. So apologies to anyone who's listening and annoyed. Okay. Ah, sounds quiet. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna make some noise and see what happens. Okay, sounds pretty good to me. Let's give it a shot. Sounds quiet. Okay. No, no, it's still there. Oh, I don't know. Yeah, here we are trying to show how good we are at things, and boy, this isn't going to work. Now we can, of course, just talk and see what happens, and people can. Sounds pretty good to me. Nah, I guess that would be too weird. No, should I get? Okay, okay. No,
I don't know what is going on. I have no idea. This is so strange. So strange. This has not happened to me doing this, and I thought it would be that, but it is not. Okay. In call. Um, can I wait? Hold on. I'm going to stop Discord all by itself. If it's no audio at all, or if it's audio doubled, and I thought that I had everything going correctly, but I am going to join. Okay. And I thought that I had everything going correctly, but okay. So you might have. Do you have the stream going somewhere on your end? Okay.
I don't think so. I don't have any windows open that have the stream.
That is so weird because you might have. I was saying something in my stream, and then I clicked onto our call again, and
I don't think so. I don't have any windows open yet.
I'm going to try this. That is so weird.
So I'm looking through my screen.
I was saying something in my stream, and then I clicked onto our call again, and
I don't think so. I don't have any windows open. Yeah, I don't definitely don't have any windows open.
I don't have any windows that don't need to be open.
Okay. Screens. I'm just going one by one through my windows, trying to make sense of it.
Right. Okay. This is so interesting. I don't know. Oh, wait. Audio sources? Okay. Oh, you know what? I think maybe. I think so. I think we figured it out. I think I've why is that delay happening? Why is that delay happening? I think I fixed it. I think we got it, ladies and germs. We yes. I don't hear it either. No, I hear it, and I'm trying to figure out on my end, on the streaming side of things, where things are going wrong. I I have things muted where things should be muted. Um, you know why? Okay, I'm going to do.
Okay, I'm going to talk in case that makes us hear me. Give it 10 seconds or whatever number of seconds it is. I don't know. I don't remember, but it does sound for now. I'm reluctant to be too hopeful, but it sounds okay. I don't I don't hear anything at the moment.
I don't
Okay, maybe
hear.
whatever you did fixed it. I don't know. I'm going to talk in case. No, there it is. Hear me. Give it 10 seconds or whatever number of seconds it is. I Right?
Um, okay, wonderful.
I see you from green. All right. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Very good. All right. Go ahead. Don't worry about that. That's totally fine. Hang on, just before we get too excited, let's make sure the audio isn't doing the exact same thing. It sounds like it is. I'm going to just keep talking so that we can hear. Yeah, there's some kind of echo on this too. Why is this happening? I've never had this on any podcast that I've participated in. Of course, I haven't done them. I'm pretty sure I've done them through Zoom and maybe Meets before. I don't know, but I haven't done Discord. I don't know. Am I hearing it or not? I okay. All right. Well, if you want to notify people of this link, I can send it. I'm happy to send it. Oh, okay, fine. All right. Well, let's get started. Sure, we'll talk. Why not? All right. My name is Charles Ardai. I was the founder, co-founder, I should say, of Hard Case Crime, which began as a line of novels, and we'll talk about that with my friend Max Phillips. And then about 7 or 8 years ago, I should say that Hard Case Crime novels began 22 years ago, but 7 or 8 years ago, we started Hard Case Crime comics. And the idea was that having published novels by many writers, some famous, some brand new, including Stephen King and Ray Bradbury and Michael Crichton and people like that, we were work. Uh, oh, that's great. That's a Stephen King book, which we love. Uh-huh. Okay. For anyone who doesn't know, Joe is Stephen King's son. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Okay. I'm so glad. I am too. I've talked to him about it, and I think he'd love to. And it's just a question of time and the idea and so on. Obviously, he has. That's right. Oh, he's very busy. He's got a ton of stuff to do. But we talk from time to time, mostly online, and he loves old fashioned crime novels, just like you and I do. And I think it would be great to have him in the line. He has a passion for the same sort of stuff we do, and it's just a question of juggling all the commitments he has. He's a busy guy and a brilliant writer. I've enjoyed his novellas. He did a number of collections of short stories and novellas, and I think it's a form that he does incredibly well. I do have his most recent novel, King Sorrow, on my counter. It is waiting to be delved into even deeper. It's got to be at least 1,000 pages. I don't know. It's a very thick book. It's like this, and oh yeah. So I haven't read that. I read Horns and Heart Shaped Box, and I think Strange Weather was the collection of four novellas, if I'm remembering. Oh, interesting. I wonder if I read that. Oh, Nosferatu, right. So I know about it, but I haven't read that one yet. So I have some catching up to do. Uh-huh. Oh, interesting. Oh, Ethan. What is his last name? I don't know. It's not Zachary Quinto. Unless you mean the Star Trek. Oh, it is Zachary Quinto. So he played Spock in the movies. As opposed to the TV show. Oh, okay. Yeah, he's great. Right. Right. His full name is yes. 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 Which was the Daniel Radcliffe movie, I believe. Yeah. Yeah, and he's a terrifically gifted writer. You always when you have somebody who is the son of a famous actor or the son of a famous novelist, people ask questions like, "Is the talent comparable, or is this person just trading on the famous parent's name?" So I'm sure when Drew Barrymore was at the start of her career, people knew John Barrymore, her famous forebearer, better than they knew her. But pretty quickly, they recognized that she had talent of her own. And at this point, there are generations of people who only know the Barrymore name because of Drew, not because of the Ethel Barrymore and John Barrymore. And I think the same goes for writers. So Alexander Dumas, who wrote the Three Musketeers, was the son of an Alexander Dumas pair who wrote successful novels of his own, and today is the more famous of the two. And I think Joe's talent is tremendous, and his dad's talent obviously is also tremendous. And I think they both stand on their own terrifically well. They've also collaborated from time to time, so I think that's just an insanely talented family, and I'm proud to know them both. And although we've only so far worked with one of the two of them, I do hope, and I think at some point we will find some excuse for Joe to get into the hard case crime line. He's one of a number of writers who have expressed interest over the years in being part of hard case crime. It's just a question of finding the right time, and absolutely. No promises. Right. If it never happens, so be it. It's okay too. I'm still happy that he enjoys reading our books. I'll take that too. But I hope that we manage to pull it off, and I think at some point we probably will. There are a number of writers we have gotten to work with finally after many years. And I could pick out some to name, but it sometimes takes years before you find just the right project to work on. And comics are an example of that because we started thinking about comic books maybe 2 years before we actually did them. And when we started, we worked with Krista Faust, who's a novelist that also does comic books, and Gary Phillips, and the two of them collaborated on a comic called Peepland, which was our first title, and this was 7 or 8 years ago. And yeah, Peepland was great. And then we worked with Walter Hill, the filmmaker. He had, I believe it was an unproduced script, which we turned into a comic book called Trigger Man. And that's where hard case crime comics began years before Gun Honey. I promised the folks who run Titan Comics and Titan Books, who we work with to produce our we originally worked with a company called Dorchester Publishing, which was the oldest independent mass market publisher still in business. Mass market refers to the size of certain paperback books. You remember the old paperback books when we were all kids? They were tiny. You could not tiny, but they were by 4 by 6 inches, and you could fit them in a jacket pocket. And then they invented something else called a trade paperback, which was 1 inch wider and 1 inch taller, 5 by 7 or 5 by 8. I guess 5 by 8 inches. Um, I'm just going to turn off the binging sound from my email coming in. But the larger trade paperback size has eclipsed the old mass market size, which was the pocket size book. But we started out working with Dorchester, which was the last one of the last remaining publishers of the smaller pocket sized books, and we worked with them for several years, 2004 to 2010, when they went out of business. And their going out of business really had nothing to do with their books. They also had a magazine line, and some things went wrong with the magazine line, so they went out of business. And we were looking around for a new publisher to work with, and we got offers from 5 publishers, which was very gratifying. That many publishers were interested in picking up Hard Case Crime, which otherwise was orphaned. We were stranded. We had no publisher to work with because we don't have printing presses ourselves. We don't have a warehouse of our own. We have me doing the editorial work, coming up with what books we're going to publish, and sometimes writing them myself, although mostly not. And Max Phillips, my old friend, who is a brilliant graphic designer, also, by the way, a brilliant novelist, and he wrote a book of ours called Fade to Blonde, which was our first winner of the Seamus Award. But he's mostly famous to the extent that he's known in the world at large. He's better known as a designer of typefaces. He's brilliant at that and graphic design, and he does all our covers. And people who love Hard Case Crime love us in part because of our covers, which are the old-fashioned pulp fiction style painted covers, and Max does all the graphic design. So Max and I do the editorial and art, but we don't do the printing and the warehousing and the shipping and the selling and the accounting and all of that. Titan offered to take the place of Dorchester, and we said yes, and we've been thrilled. Titan has been a pleasure to work with. One of the fun things about Titan is, in addition to publishing books, they also publish comics, major comics. In fact, I mean, they're not at the same level DC or Marvel in terms of famous original characters like Spider-Man or Superman, but in terms of famous characters that they partner to publish. For example, they do all the Conan comic books, Conan the Barbarian. They do Doctor Who. They do Blade Runner. So major properties. Yes, in fact, I think it may still be going today. I think it's ending very soon. Maybe it ended today. We'll see. But well, maybe that's right. And who's there to type that? Exactly. And we've done 2 humble bundles. We like working with them. We did 2 hard case crime offers. I think one was 5 or 6 years ago. One was maybe 3 years ago. And we just have to wait until we have enough new stuff to offer because I don't want to go back to Humble Bundle with the same books that we already offered. It would be more fun if we have new ones. Uh, I loved it. Yeah, I watched all of it. Oh, I think I know who those. Yeah, they did a nice job with that. Was that Modifius? Magpie for this one. Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah. Uh-huh. Okay. Oh, that's a fair point. Right. The people who didn't see it the first time might still want those same books. But at least we'll wait till we have some new ones to offer. It would be nice. But yeah, we worked with Humble Bundle and we were happy to, and we have not yet done a Gun Honey Bundle. At some point, maybe we'll do that. Oh, that's where we got off this topic. So Gun Honey was not one of the original titles that we published, and in fact, it was we published the first Gun Honey issue in 2021, which is 5 years ago. And as we'll talk in a second, we're celebrating the 5th anniversary with a special supersized reprinting of issue number 1. But oh, I'm sorry, it was all sold out. And it's not easy to lose because that thing is huge. It's 11 by 17. It's oh no. Yes. Well, thank you. Yes, I appreciate that you're getting that. Now, issue 3 has, I should mention, issue 3 was supposed to come out. This is issue 3 of Gun Honey Doubles Down, which is the current series, 4 issue series. all the Gun Honey series are 4 issues, and then they get compiled into a graphic novel if people prefer to read it that way. And issue 3 was supposed to come out on August 19th and will, in fact, come out August 26th. I don't know why it was delayed for a week. It's not because the thing wasn't written or drawn, but I'm sure there were printing delays or something like that. And so people are going to be able to get it in any store across the country on August 26th. We are doing one event for issue 3 if you happen to be in New York, or I think they'll ship to you if you're not in New York. There's a store called Forbidden Planet in New York, which is just a famous science fiction comic book store and models and games. Um, and Forbidden Planet will have it one week early. They'll have it on the 19th. But every other store will have it on the 26th. And I hope people go out and get it. It's a storyline that I'm proud of. And oh, oh, that's great. You want cover A? Excellent. Oh, that's great. I love store exclusives. Some people are on the fence about variant covers, and I understand that. If you're a collector and I love the idea that different artists get a crack at it. When I was a kid growing up with comics, every issue had one cover and that's it. If you wanted another cover, you waited a month and you'd get another cover, but that's it. And the idea that now instead of once a month one artist gets a shot, if you are an up and coming artist and you go to your local comic book store and you talk them into doing a retailer exclusive, maybe they'll only print 500 copies and they'll only sell 500 copies, but it's your chance to be a comic book cover artist. And so my feeling is I want to give as many artists as possible a chance to have that experience. So I don't mind if there are dozens of different variants, and for a collector, they pick out the ones they like best. But I do appreciate that it is a little bit harder if you're a completist and you want a collection that has every variant of Gun Honey. You want to know you have on your shelf one of every version. And I am that kind of collector myself. So I in fact do get one of every version, and I feel very lucky because I don't have to go all over the country to all these different retailers and separately order all these different versions. And so I do apologize to any collector for whom that is an overwhelming task. But I would just say you don't have to get them all. It's okay to get a selection. Now, something is happening on my screen right now. I don't know if it's happening on yours as well. Maybe. Oh, okay, that's what it is. That's great. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't something going wrong. Yeah. Sure. Yeah, so 4 is coming in September, 3 is coming in a week or 2, depending on where you purchase from. 4, the cover A is by Derek Chu, and that's that cover, and that has a few different variants for people who like foil or virgin versions. Then B is a fellow named Alex Ronald who does great action scenes, and that is a scene from the opening pages of the book where Joanna Tan, the heroine or anti-heroine, depending on how you think about it. She is a criminal after all. Is on a motorcycle in the heart of Moscow, and she's being pursued and gets into, well, it's not a spoiler because it happens on page 2, but it she gets into an accident and ends up in the hospital. And what happens next? Well, you'll have to read the issue to find out. But Alex Ronald did a beautiful, I think, a terrific job showing the motorcycle crashing into a car. C is Tabitha Lyons, who goes by Artie Fakes online, and she's a terrific cosplayer who designs her own costumes, even some very elaborate armor and huge costumes, and also cosplays as various characters like Poison Ivy and some of the sexy women of comic books. And she's been doing Gun Honey cosplay covers since our very second series, not the original Gun Honey, but since Gun Honey Blood for Blood, which was the second series. Uh, not issue, variant. The third one on the right is Anghor Kang, who is the interior artist that draws all the interior pages, and he also did a motorcycle cover. And then the last one you see here is is a new artist who is I believe I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, and I apologize if I'm not. Leos Ng, Ng, and he is part of a coterie of artists who are related to Art Germ, Stanley Lau out in Singapore. Derek Chu is also part of that group, and he's one who has never drawn for us before. This is his first time, and I love how it came out. So as you see, there are half a dozen different versions that we print ourselves, and then in addition to that, there are various stores around the country who publish what you described, retail exclusives, and I think it's great. I think it's nice that people. Yes, so that's Tahani Farr, who attends a number of the comic conventions. She is completely tireless. I go to a few conventions each year. Like I go to New York Comic Con because I live in New York, so it's easy for me to get to that one. But Tahani travels all over the country and I think all over the world doing conventions and manning a booth. And in addition to doing her actual painting, which is very time consuming and it's beautiful work, and I am beyond impressed that she's able to juggle both the creation of art on one hand and the marketing and staffing a booth and so on. In any event, she did covers. She did a cover for Heat Seeker, which is a another series in the Gun Hunting universe. And then she did Gun Honey, and she did two versions of this cover. One in which Joanna's uh, outfit is slightly less risque, and therefore it's SFW, safe for work, and one in which her top isn't on, and so it is NSFW, and you can get that version as well if you prefer. We do have some nude, topless, and nude covers. The book is a right? That's a Ukrainian artist who goes by the name Rare Tempter, and she always does her covers in two versions, nude and not nude. And we typically will print them on both sides, so you can turn the issue over, and one side is clothed, one side is nude, and then we package it in an opaque bag so that if you buy the comic in a comic book store, no one is scandalized or shocked, or if there are kids in the store, they don't have to see the naked cover. So you can keep it in this black plastic until you get home, and then you can open it up and enjoy. By the way, the interiors of Gun Honey feature nudity. It is a book for adults. It's meant for mature readers. In the same way, a James Bond movie in the old days, I don't know that they do this anymore, but when I was a kid and you went to a Roger Moore James Bond movie or a Sean Connery James Bond movie, which was a little before my time, the opening credits would feature James Bond with a gun and beautiful naked women writhing under blue and green and red lights. And it was all very artistic and fun and sexy. And nobody thought twice about it. My parents took me to those movies when I was a teenager, and nobody said, "Oh, why are you shouldn't get to see naked women on the screen." It was a different time. That was the 70s and the 80s. But in the spirit of those old James Bond movies and science fiction movies like Barbarella, where Jane Fonda opened the movie by stripping out of a spacesuit that, by the way, was already transparent before she stripped out of it, and in the spirit of those sexy, teasing, pinup style movies and books as well, Gandhi is itself a sexy pinup style art extravaganza. So we lean into that. We enjoy it, but we also recognize that yeah, not every reader likes that. So we want to make sure you know before you pick up a Gun Honey copy of a Gun Honey comic or a Heat Seeker comic, these are sexy. And so if you are into that, if you enjoy that, by all means, I hope you get it and I hope you enjoy it. If it's not your thing, don't pick it up. It will not be happy. If you do not like that the characters will occasionally not have clothing on, do not pick up Gun Honey. We have plenty of other things you can buy that don't have nudity, but Gun Honey is definitely a comic that has naked people in it. It's not so much that it's my favorite in the sense that I couldn't on a different day have picked one of the others, but I think it's a very special cover, and I love there are a couple of things that I love about it. First of all, the execution is excellent. The technical quality of the art, it's a beautiful piece of art, but it's also um, action packed. The storyline of issue 3, it takes place on the border of Finland, and of course, Finland, for anyone who's been there or knows the Finns, Finland is famous for their saunas. The word sauna is a Finnish word, and in a country of only 5 or 6 million people, there are 3 million saunas. Almost every home has a sauna in it. And so I thought, if we're going to do a story on the border of Finland, it's got to have a sauna. And so we have this big fight that takes place in a sauna where Joanna is being attacked by a much larger opponent who is, a woman who is like a bodybuilder, like an incredible Hulk quality bodybuilder. And she is thrown through the glass door of the sauna. And so that's the scene that this artist, Chris Wall, has illustrated. And I love how the glass is caught in flight, in mid flight. So you're seeing this frozen instant in time as Joanna is being thrown backwards through the door. And in the shattered glass, you see the opponent. So this powerful, gigantic female opponent, you only glimpse in her gritted teeth, the wide open blue eye. And so you get a hint of what this villain looks like, but you don't see all of her. Similarly, Joanna is wearing a robe and nothing under it, but you only get glimpses of that nudity. So it's teasing, and it's what's sometimes referred to in the modeling world as implied nudity. You don't actually see anything you're not supposed to see, that it's not safe to show, but it looks like you're about to. And so I find all of these aspects of the cover quite a lot of fun. Plus, Chris Wall is a very hard artist to get because he's also in huge demand. He's very busy. He did a cover for Peepland, our very first series. That was gorgeous. It was one of my all-time favorite covers of any of our comics. And so we've been going back to him for years, ever since that, saying, do you have time to do a cover for Gun Honey? And he just hasn't had the time. The schedule hasn't worked out. And so that we finally got, we found a time when he could do it. That's another part of why this is a favorite of mine. But you know what? The Rare Tempter cover right next to it is also a terrific, beautiful, lovely cover. And I don't at all want to suggest that the fact that I love Chris's means I don't also love the others. Thanks. For issue 3. You won't go wrong. I think issue 3 also has, if you scroll up, you'll see, I think the cover A is by Sozo Mika, who is an incredibly talented painter who I got to know through meeting her at Comic Cons and just communicating since then. Am I right that she's covered? No, I may be thinking of a different issue. Let's see. Sozo Mika is issue. No, no, I think now that I'm thinking of it, I think Sozo Mika might be cover A of issue 4. I think that might be. That's Encore Kang. That's the interior artist. That may well be, and that's all. The girl with the fishnets. Yeah, he originally drew that without the X's of tape under the fishnets, and we asked him to add the X's of tape so that we could use this as a cover without putting it in a black plastic bag. We liked it. We wanted to make sure everyone got to see it. These two characters. So Joanna is our weapons expert, whose job it is to supply a weapon to anyone who needs it, where they need it, when they need it, no matter how difficult. And in this case, her assignment was to get a gun into the Kremlin. And it was the US government that asked her to do it. And they offered her $10 million to do it. They knew that the dictator of Russia was going to be interrogating a disgruntled subordinate. And they said, we would give you $10 million if there could be a gun under the table in the meeting room, because they knew that this disgruntled subordinate, if he could find a gun, he would use it. And he does. Joanna gets the gun there, and he finds the gun and he uses it. But the man he shoots in the head, who we think is the dictator of Russia, is actually a look-alike. He's a double. And that's why the title of the series is Doubles Down. Gun Honey Doubles Down, because the man who was supposed to be killed was not killed. And the day after, three identical looking men were seen in 3 different parts of Russia. One at the border with Finland, one at the Black Sea, one in Siberia, and nobody knows which one is the real dictator. And so the government goes back to Joanna and says, we'll double your fee to $20 million if you track down these 3 men and figure out which one is the real dictator and make sure that he dies. And so that's her job. That is the story of Gun Honey Doubles Down.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So fun.
Yeah. So you just put out, or this week, no, 2 weeks ago, on the
Uh,
5th, you guys just put out the 5th anniversary of Gun Honey. So
yes,
it's been
September 2021 to August 2026. That's our 5 years anniversary. Didn't feel like it. I can't believe we put out 7 series. It's been 4 Gun Honeys. The fourth is in progress, and 3 Heat Seekers in 5 years, 4 issues apiece. That's something like 600 pages of comics, and it was a pleasure to write them. They're fun. People enjoy reading them. But I wouldn't have guessed half a decade has gone by. And when Titan pointed that out and said, "Should we do something to commemorate it?" I said, "Yeah, sure. Let's do that." And because we do it in this big size, we can not only reprint; it's also more pages. So we reprint the entirety of issue one, the very first issue, which, by the way, was the best-selling independent comic of the year, improbably. It's an indie crime comic. You wouldn't expect that, but I think because Adam Hughes did a gorgeous cover for it, which you can see on the anniversary edition. That issue, the Adam Hughes cover, was the single that top-selling independent. I think Diamond, which is now out of business, but
yeah,
Diamond
they are, which
used to be
is
the big
sad.
distributor, and they had something they called non-premiere comics. Premiere means Spider-Man, Superman, Batman, and non-premiere means everything else. And I think the Adam Hughes cover of Gun Honey One was the top-selling non-premiere comic of the year, which was extraordinary. I felt so grateful, and so we said, a let's do a giant-sized version with the Adam Hughes cover and the interiors of. There it is. That's Adam Hughes's cover. You can see why people liked it.
Yeah,
Joanne,
it
uh,
looks like something out like one of them femme fatales
yes, yes.
from a James Bond movie.
Absolutely right. This is like Halle Berry playing Jinx in Tomorrow Never Dies. If that was the one she was Jinx in, I forget. Yeah,
Right.
it could be Ursula Andress and Doctor No. And yeah, so we are putting out this fifth anniversary edition, which is 17 inches by 11 or some measurement like that. And in addition to reprinting the entirety of issue one on at that huge size, so you can really enjoy the art, we also have an 8-page cover gallery where I picked not necessarily my favorite because it's so hard to name favorites, but I picked one really beautiful cover from every issue of every series. So we have 7 series, and on these giant sized pages, we have 4 issues. So we have 4 covers, one from issue one, two, three, four. So the first series, we have 4 covers, second series, and all the way through the 7 series. And then for the eighth, we have one of each cosplay model. So we've had 4 cosplay models: Kate Max, Tabitha Lyons, Grace McClung, and Marissa Roper, and they each get a cover. And because the pages are so large, the covers can be reproduced quite large. So it's just a terrific cover gallery of some of my favorite covers from the whole 5 years. And then we have a few other special features that we threw in just for fun, a little reminiscence about the 5 years, and a section where we show what my original script pages looked like and then what the pencils and inks looked like. Just
Oh,
because people enjoy seeing the behind the scenes stuff.
yeah, that's super rad. And to me, I could be wrong, but I honestly I don't think I've ever seen cosplay covers besides Gun Honeys.
Oh
I
no,
think
they definitely have. So
like I said, I could be wrong, but
yeah,
like,
no, there are books like Vampirella where you'll see a
oh
model
yeah,
dressed.
Vampirella does do some cosplay covers and
And
stuff like
I
that.
think Red Sonja has done some,
Yes, you're right.
and
I
maybe
you know what?
Asia.
Now that you say that, now that I remember
Yeah, you can
seeing
think right.
those.
Yeah, so you don't see it always, and I think it's much more common in books by Dynamite and some of the other indie publishers than DC and Marvel. But
I mean,
I,
I'm more of an indie guy, anyways.
yeah, me too,
Like, so,
obviously.
so yeah. My dad, he
Uh,
lived in Portland, and he
okay.
was in a band, and he was their studio. They had a music studio, and their music studio was above the original Dark Horse comic
Oh
book shop,
wow,
and
I had
across the
no
street
idea. Yeah.
from the Dark Horse comic, like the offices, and then there were
Okay.
some offices that were next to them. But the main buddy, I always forget his name, but he now works at IDW,
Okay.
and so yeah, so I remember my dad sent me like a 3-inch stack, like manila envelope full of just like Dark Horse, and my first Dark Horse thing I ever got exposed to, which I think um, everybody's first kind of Dark Horse in the '90s was The Mask. I
Right,
think
right, absolutely.
I honestly don't. That I think that was the most pop culture zeitgeist thing that Dark Horse had ever
I
done.
think
Like I
that's
didn't
true. I
even
mean, not counting Star Wars, which was the other direction, right? They
right.
licensed Star Wars.
Yeah, they had Star Wars, but for an original thing that
Yeah,
they
I
put
think
out
that's right.
was the Mask, and I was like, who is Dark Horse? And then like 5 years later, my dad was like, yeah, I have friends that work at Dark Horse. I'm like, what? You have
Was that
friends that
Portland,
work at
Oregon, or Portland,
Dark
Maine?
Horse?
Which Portland?
Oregon.
Okay,
So
I
yeah,
should know that, but I didn't know.
so yeah, so I was
Yeah,
just like,
terrific
so
experience.
this is that's insane, and but yeah, it was just it's so like I like to me like indie everything, indie music, indie comics, indie
Uh-huh.
films, like indie video games. Like I
Yeah.
said, I love indie. I'm playing an indie video game right now from Australia.
Okay.
It's a game. It's called Slay Blade, and you play. You're this kid on a skateboard and you're roaming around town and you're playing. I don't know if you've ever heard of Beyblades. It was like this top, but they
Okay.
had like these like blades and plastic blades, and it was like this a 90s, basically it was a 90s top that you had a you put it in a in a holster thing, and you had a thing you just ripped out of it, and
Okay.
it spun it, and so they
Oh,
would
okay. So
and
this
so they
wasn't a
would have
video game. This was an actual physical toy.
yeah, so in the 90s, well, there was also an anime
Okay.
and a manga, and then they made these toys, the actual toy. They made actual toys. So
That's pretty cool.
in the video game that I'm playing now, is you're actually going around, in your little neighborhood playing
Oh,
with
okay. And
friends,
using your, yeah,
and you're in your
that's
body,
cool.
you have like different bodies and different things. You're making your own little concoction of a what they call a sleigh blade. But yeah, indie comics. I mean,
Yeah.
anything. I mean, I think ever since maybe like junior high school, um, was like when I really got into indie, like indie everything and like independent movies and all that. So I've been
Uh-huh.
independent. I've been a fan of the independent scene um, for a long time, for
That's
30 plus
cool.
years. So
We
like I
our
even
age
bought a
maybe.
Nintendo Switch just to play
Okay.
indie games. I
Oh,
didn't want
interesting.
I didn't want to play the Nintendo like main titles. I got it to play like independent titles, like Binding of Isaac and Broforce and all these other just like independent retro looking games.
Well,
And
let me tell you about since you're a gaming guy. I know it's not the main thing we're supposed to talk about, but
no, no,
I,
and
as we discussed before we got on the formal chat, I was a gamer too, although I haven't been so much recently. But I spent the first 20 years of my career writing about video games for various different video game magazines. Originally, game magazines in the 80s called Electronic Fun with Computers and Games, and Electronic Games, and K Power, and Enter, and I forget where else. And then eventually, for years, I wrote for Computer Gaming World, and mostly about PC games. But I started with the Atari VCS and ColecoVision and television Vectrex, those systems back in the old days. And I just discovered something called a RetroPie 3.0 system. I guess RetroPie is an
Raspberry Pi.
but uh, somebody has created a build where you order the hardware from him and he sends you something that's like plug and play, ready to go. And I ordered this. I haven't gotten it yet, but he says it contains 44,000 games from 1970 through I think 2001, and I'm beyond excited because when I was as a kid growing up, I kept a master list of every game made for the Atari VCS. I did research, I read all the magazines, and I had a list. I think it was complete at some point. Every single game by every publisher, no matter how small. But I haven't played these games in 30 years, 40 years, whatever it is. And so the idea that he basically said every game that ever existed, roughly, he has for 20, 30 different systems. And so I'm very excited. I'm going to get to play these games that I haven't seen since 1983, 84, 85, some of which I reviewed when they first came out. And to be fair, I'm sure many of them are terrible. They were already bad then. And now, for somebody who's gotten used to modern games, which are so much more sophisticated, they're going to be just awful. You know what? I bet some of them are still really wonderful.
Well, the
I still
thing
do. Old
the,
games, like
the
coin
thing
op
is that retro games, especially even Atari games, um, are super popular. There is, over the pandemic, there
yeah.
has been a bunch of Chinese companies building handhelds that look like Game Boys, but
Oh, interesting. Okay.
they can play everything from Atari all the
Okay.
way up to the PlayStation 1. Some of them can play up to the Xbox One, the very first Xbox.
Okay.
And I did a video. I think that video that I did
Oh,
showing
with the
off.
Hard-Case Crime books on it.
Yeah, yeah. So that, which I have right now, like literally, this can play Atari, this can play Coleco, this can
Oh,
play
that's
the
great.
Intellivision, and so there are. I've been seeing a lot. There's of young kids, teenagers, some in their tweens or whatever. Their parents are showing them the games that they used to play, and they're just
Sure.
like, "Oh my god, this is so great!" I saw something online. This mom who's been showing her son all the old games that they've been playing on the Genesis, and he's like, "Mom, these graphics are so good," and it's like Sonic the Hedgehog
That's
and
great.
and stuff like that. But yeah, like there is
That's
a
great to hear. You know,
there's a
my daughter's 15,
there's a
and
huge like boom right now, and especially with what modern games are doing with microtransactions, with
oh,
like
interesting.
Sony getting rid of physical media,
Right.
with like pretty much everybody getting rid of physical media, like all across the board. It's probably
Yeah.
pretty
Movie
soon that
studios.
Nintendo is going to get rid of physical media. Even their Nintendo Switch, most of their quote unquote physical media is just a key card to play a digital version of the game. It's just
Yeah.
a DRM, or a
Yeah, I think it's
DC,
CRM.
yeah, DRM, just to play. Um, just to play the game. And
Right.
so people are like, F that. I want my physical media. I want, like I want the books. I want, you
Well,
know,
you can see I
yeah,
certainly like physical media.
yeah, yeah. So there's people like you that have shelves and shelves and shelves of video games from
Yeah.
the Atari all the way to PlayStation 5 or Xbox One or whatever. And they've
Yeah.
collected since they were a kid. And so people, like their kids or their grandkids, are just like, yeah, I like this. Like I like the PlayStation Portable, or
Right.
the Game Boy, the Game Boy Advance.
Right.
Um, and so I have a buddy of mine who he sells modded Game Boys with like modern backlit screens, and they have like Type C charging and stuff like that. And that's the kind of stuff he sells, is like more modded stuff. Like he has cartridges for every system that had a cartridge that
Uh-huh.
has every game for that system.
That's amazing. Now, then you get into different kinds of issues like controllers, because some of the games required trackballs or paddles or some other weird controller, and trying to map that onto a modern controller doesn't always work that well, and the game doesn't work so well. So I think there are challenges, but I still can't wait to try this. I think it'll be a few weeks before mine shows up. I'm excited to try it.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's video games. But what do I do when I'm not reading and writing comic books and mysteries and so on? Yeah,
Or
I don't
editing them.
I used to, but I do still somewhat.
But
But
yeah,
yes, books back. So indies, that's where we were. We
yeah.
both like indies, and so we started doing this line of indie comics, and that became eventually Gun Honey came out, and it became our by far best selling, most popular comic book series. And when the artist who draws Gun Honey is brilliant, a guy named Angkor Kang. He's in Malaysia, and his art is gorgeous, but it's so meticulous and detailed. It's a little bit like Frazetta, and it's all done by hand. None of it is digital. This is pen and ink, and it takes them quite a long time to complete a 4-issue series. So we have that's why we created the spin-off series Heatseeker, because that has a different artist. So while Ang is finishing his next Gun Honey series, we can give readers more of the story by having a Heatseeker between every two Gun Honeys.
What
Doesn't always.
made you want to write Gun Honey? What made you? Because you've been, mostly in the, editor in chief of Hard Case Crime. and you wrote a little bit, but what made you be like, you know what, I want to write a comic book series?
Well, I've been reading comics since I was a little kid. My go-to book when I was a kid was Flash. I loved Barry Allen Flash, and I mean, we talked about how much we love indies, and I do love indies, but I also love DC, and I love Flash. And I also bought, when Secret Wars happened, when Crisis on Infinite Earths happened, I was there on, in the comic book store buying those when they were new. Somewhere in a box, I have the original four-issue Wolverine series, which is probably worth a few bucks now. And so I grew up with these things. I read comic strips in newspapers. When there was a Justice League and a Spider-Man comic daily in the newspapers, I read those. And so deep in my blood, I have comic books, and I have written all sorts of other things over the years. I wrote short stories for magazines, reviews for video game magazines. I wrote novels. I even wrote a few episodes of TV shows, but I
Raven.
never wrote a comic book.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to try it. I wanted to see what it was like. I wanted to, contribute into this art form that I grew up loving. And I just didn't have an idea that went with it. I promised Nick and Viv, the two people who own and run Titan, I said, I will write one for Hard Case Crime Comics. I just have to come up with the idea and find the time. A little like Chris Wall not being available to do a cover at some point. It just fit. I found the time to do it. And I had the idea. I had a friend, I still have a friend named Uni Hong, whose name is spelled EUNYHONG. And I mention that because it's an anagram of gun honey. And I was out to lunch with Uni at one point, and she expressed interest. She's a writer of nonfiction, she's a journalist. And she expressed interest in maybe writing a hard case crime book at one point, but she said she might not want to use her real name on the book because she's a serious, respected journalist, and writing a potboiler mystery might not go well with that
Yeah.
reputation. And so I said, well, why don't you just use an anagram of your name? When I wrote my first books for Hard Case Crime, since I was also the editor of the line, I wanted a different name than my own on the books. And so I took the letters and the words Charles Ardai, and I found a way to rearrange them and came up with the name Richard Alias. So I wrote my first two books for Hard Case Crime under the name Richard Alias. And I said, Uni, why don't you just come up with an anagram for your name? And she said, but my name is Uni Hong, EUNYHONG. There are no good anagrams of Uni Hong. And I thought for a minute and I said, what about Gun Honey? And that's where Gun Honey originally came from. Now, Gun Honey would not be a good pseudonym. It doesn't make sense. You write a book and the
Right.
name of the author is Gun Honey. But I thought, what a great title that would be. Gun Honey's a great title.
I mean,
And so,
yeah, it has like what, because like when I've been watching a lot of Get Smart, like
okay, I
every
love
night.
Get.
Every night I'm like I fall asleep watching Get Smart
Huh?
on my handheld. I think I have like season
That's
two.
great.
I'm season two on there right now.
Okay.
So I've been going through season two of Get Smart, and I was like, "What is Agent 99's name?" And I looked at I've been looking at the covers. It's like this just looks like a young Agent 99. Like,
That's great. Was that Barbara Feldon? I'm trying to
yeah,
remember who played. Yes, and I wanted to say Don Adams, and I would be right with Don Adams, but I always mix his name up with the Mad Magazine artist Don Martin, which is a completely different person. So forget I said that. Don Adams and Barbara Feldon. I love Get Smart, and of course it was from the brain of Mel Brooks and Buck Henry, who were great.
which was their first show. Like, and I think they're his only show for Mel Brooks. Well, not only,
That
but
well, now he's had some streaming things in his old age, but
yeah, but like that was like his first thing, like one of his first like big breakouts. But yeah, and I was looking at, it, I was like she kind of just looks like Gun Honey, like modernized, like, and
well,
it's like
she's very cute.
like
She's
and I was
definitely
like that's Agent 99, and
that's right.
and so
Maybe she's Agent 99's daughter. Who knows?
or granddaughter, but yeah,
Granddaughter, exactly. Niece. Who knows?
yeah,
Uh,
but no, I was just like, it was like Gun Honey. I was like, wow, like she fits that whole kind of like era of just like female agents.
Absolutely. So the Avengers had Diana Rigg playing Emma Peel, who was famous, sexy and strong. And then in comic strips and novels, there was Modesty Blaze, who never really worked as a movie character, but was a very popular character in books and comics. And she was on the wrong side of the law, but kind of secret agenty. And then, of course, there are as you said, the various femme fatale characters in the James Bond movies who were often killers themselves. And I love that. I love the strong female archetype. I really enjoy a character. If James Bond can be hyper competent, deadly, ruthless, and by the way, very handsome, right? I mean, the guys who played James Bond are always these handsome guys.
Right.
Why can't you have the same kind of character who is similarly competent and swaggering and charismatic and very beautiful, but a woman? Why not? And so that's kind of what Gun Honey is, except that I made her a criminal rather than a secret agent.
It's
But
kind of like
from time
Scarlet Witch, or not Scarlet Witch, um, Black Widow.
like that's right. So Black Widow is another example. You're absolutely right. Or I guess Charlie's Angels would be another archetype from the '70s, right? They were very
Yeah,
sexy and they didn't always wear all that much clothing, but they certainly were the heroes of their own story. And I also like the Charlie's Angels aspect of female friends. They were not just coworkers; they liked each other and they were friends. And so this idea that Joanna of Gun Honey and Dahlia Racers, the star of Heatseeker, were ex girlfriends. They were dating at some point. They broke up since, but they still care about each other and they help each other out. I just like that. It's like the Avengers help each other out. Why shouldn't there be a set of women on the wrong side of the law who help each other out?
right.
And they're friends. They like each other, and I just found that really appealing. One of the things people forget of when you think about these criminal characters is, as Gilbert and Sullivan wrote, when a
What is the
felon's
manga
not
and
engaged
the
in his
anime
employment,
that is
uh,
talking about
he has an
this?
ordinary life. They go on vacation, they blow their nose, they raise their kids.
What
So
is the manga
why shouldn't,
anime
just
that
because
is
somebody
talking
is a
about?
world class
Uh,
criminal doesn't
what is the
mean
manga
that they
anime
don't have a
about
normal life
sisters
with
who
girlfriends
are
and
thieves
restaurants they
and
can't get into
a cat?
unless they get a reservation early enough, or all that stuff makes them more human. And I just think that's fun. So that's something I've tried to bring into Gun Honey and Heat Seeker. By the way, we have not announced the title yet, but we are going to kick off another spin-off series next spring. When I wrote the original Heat Seeker, I introduced Dahlia Racers, who's the character, and her criminal specialty. So Joanna's criminal specialty, Joanna Tan's in Gun Honey, her criminal specialty is she'll get you whatever weapon you need, when you need it, and where you need it. Dahlia Racers, who's the star of Heatseeker, has a different criminal specialty. Her specialty is if you have been marked for death, somebody wants to kill you, you can hire her and she'll help you disappear. And specifically,
Ooh.
she'll make it, she'll make the people who are trying to kill you think you're already dead, so they don't have to bother. That's her specialty for a fee. She does this for a price. She's not just
Oh
being
yeah, of
generous.
course.
Of course. And in the second adventure she had, which was called Heatseeker Combustion, she went up against an adversary, a woman named Evie Parker, who is a mercenary, a professional killer, who has been genetically altered so she can't feel pain or heat or cold or hunger or fatigue. By the way, this is a huge advantage on the battlefield. If you're a soldier, these are all good things not to be saddled with. But over the course of this, and this is a bit of a spoiler, but too bad. Over the course of the first adventure where we meet Evie, uh, she changes sides, and she and Dahlia fall in love. And by the end of the book, they're together. They're a couple. And the character Evie Parker is one that fans really love. I love writing her. One of the things that's fun about Evie is she's physically strong and she has this weird genetic alteration and so on, and she's a killer. But she's also a huge comic book geek. She loves comic books and she loves Star Wars and Star Trek and Monty Python and The Princess Bride. And her dialogue is full of references to these things. She's a geek. She's like us. She just happens also to be a professional killer. And that's a fun combination. And a lot of people wanted to see an Evie book, give her a starring role in her own book. And so the book that's coming out next spring, the current Gun Honey series will end this September. And then there won't be anything in the Gun Honey universe until next spring because we have to write and draw the next book.
Of
But the next
course.
one will be about Evie, and she's going to be starring in it. And she's going to be going up against the richest man in the world, who is not going to be named Elon Musk.
Oh.
We love anagrams here. And so I will mention that the dictator of Russia in our universe is not named Vladimir Putin, but his name is an anagram of Vladimir Putin. It's Dmitry Vulapin.
Okay.
The richest man in the world is not named Elon Musk, but his name is an anagram of Elon Musk. It's Mel Konis. And so we have fun with that. When I say we, I mean me. I have fun doing that. I just love weird little Easter eggs, and that's a fun Easter
Man,
egg.
we're getting some like spoil not I wouldn't say spoilers, but we're getting some inside baseball
Right,
with
right. A
that,
little behind the scenes stuff, you know.
and I love it. I do love it.
Nobody's going to remember it. I think by the time next April comes, when issue one of the new series comes out, I think even people who have watched this podcast, and I hope millions of people watch this podcast, but um, even people who watch this podcast will have forgotten what I said about the villain's name. But when they get it, maybe it'll come back and they'll say, "Oh yeah, Melconis. I know what that's an anagram of." In the
Right,
case of Elon Musk, it's relatively easy because he only has 8 letters in his name, so it's you only have so many choices.
right,
But I had
right,
fun coming up with anagrams.
right. And then we were talking earlier about femme fatale and women who are on like the wrong side of the law. I came across an anime slash manga called Cat's Eye about
Okay.
sisters who are stealing their father's work. He was an artist,
Oh
and like
wow.
this group of like rich people basically stole all of his art, and murdered him. And so
Ah, now
they're
the daughters are stealing it back.
and the daughters are stealing it back, and
I love it. I
it's from
love
the
it.
80s. Like they originally came out in like 84, and then they
Yeah.
just redid it, just like Rama One Half it does with did with Netflix. um uh they've been doing that a lot with manga and anime, and they've
Oh,
been
that's
just re putting it out for a new generation. But yeah,
so. What's
cat
this, manga or anime?
well, it's manga is the comic book version. Anime is like the cartoon
Right.
version
So this
of the manga, and
was
it's
Cat's Eye or manga originally, or
yeah,
was
it
it?
was originally a manga, and then they made it into an anime in the 80s, and then they made it into a manga again in like the early 2000s, and then like right around the time Gun Honey was coming out.
Oh, interesting.
They put out, or they reimagined Cat's Eye into more of a modern age, and then just this last year, or just this year, I want to say in let me look it up in wiki. I was just looking at the wiki.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it re, it released in 2025,
Okay.
and so and that's when I came across it, and because I just I watch like a bunch of anime like almost every day, and like
Uh-huh.
that's my I'm really into I really like, I mean, besides like like there's some Western stuff that I really like, but I've really gravitated towards this anime because I'm learning so much about culture cultures from
Uh-huh.
them. Um, like Rakugos. I don't know if
Okay.
I know what a
Oh,
Rakugo is. A
I don't know.
Rakugo is it was mostly a male who were
Okay.
telling these old folk tales,
Oh,
like
interesting.
these stories from like kind of not fairy tales, but these folklore type
Oh, I think I
stories.
have heard about that.
And
There's one Western storyteller working in this tradition that I found videos of online.
yeah,
Um,
and
yeah.
they just like they sit on like a pillow,
Uh-huh.
on
Right,
their
with the robe.
yeah. And so I've been loving learning about cultures. Like I learned about cosplay culture through two
Okay.
different animes, and like creating the cosplay. There's a one that I liked. It was called My Dress Up Darling, and it was about
Okay.
this kid whose parents had died, and he lives with his grandfather, and his grandfather makes these like porcelain dolls of like these old school porcelain dolls of like the of the old eras of Japan,
Okay.
and they're like very popular, and it's a very hard thing to make, and he's learning how to paint the faces of the women,
Oh, okay.
and he's really good at making the clothes, and this girl in his class is like, you know how to sew? And he goes, yeah. She's like, I'm horrible at sewing, but I really want to do this cosplay of this character, and will you sew this cosplay for me? And he goes, yeah, I guess. So the whole thing is this like this shutting kid who doesn't have any friends becomes friends with one of the most popular girls, which is mostly like every manga slash anime is like,
Right.
and he creates these elaborate cosplays, outfits for her that
That's
even the most popular cosplayers are now seeking him out.
uh-huh.
And so, but yeah, like
It's fun.
I really have just found like I there's one thing that 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 I haven't found in like I recently in Western like the comic books or the literature is showing the culture of the people, and that's what the manga, especially like the Rakugo and cosplay, I'm learning about these cultures that I would never learn in like a Western like TV show. You have a TV show about a high school, like the high school, it's going to be all drama
This
and
would
all
be in
this other
America.
stuff. Yeah, but manga has really been like focused on, we're going to show you the cultures of these things that we have created, or these things that we're really into. Like there's one about breakdancing, and
Okay.
like a dance team in a high school, but they go to like breakdance competitions and stuff like that, and dance competitions. So I'm learning about dance competitions and dance
Uh-huh.
culture, which was American, but how they're doing it. And
Right. So when you talk
that's what
about
I've been.
culture, it's like a subculture, not necessarily a country's culture. It's a subculture based on interests or hobbies or whatever it is.
Right, right, and the West just really hasn't captured that in I in like a for what we were showing for like young adults and stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of the mangas are there's a lot more for like just adults as well, but
Sure.
um and it's weird now too, is because I'm watching I there's one anime that I'm watching right now, and both of the characters are smoking, and
Okay.
we've kind of gotten away for years of like showing people smoking
Yeah. True.
or doing anything like that. But now there's this manga that's front and center, and that's how they're connecting, is this woman who is a cashier at this grocery store that this
Oh,
guy goes
selling
to,
cigarettes.
is that they're just becoming friends while she's on her, like she's just gotten off of work
Cigarette break.
and her cigarette break.
Got it.
And
Well, of course, in film noir, you saw people smoking all the time. That was in the 1940s, 50s, 60s,
oh
and
yeah,
people smoked left and right. You don't see it that much anymore, and maybe that's for the best in terms of people's vascular health. But there was certainly something atmospheric about it. There's no
yeah,
question.
but it's just weird, not weird, but it's interesting to me that that is now like, oh, we're gonna show people smoking again, like why? But I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
it's
an
cool.
interesting
Like it
choice.
doesn't make me want to go out and smoke again, but
No, no,
it
I've never
yeah,
smoked. I don't want to, but my mother smoked 3 packs a day, so I definitely was exposed to it. And
yeah. So did my
I'm
dad.
happy if real people in the real world don't smoke, but I also think it's fine for characters in books to smoke. I also don't want people committing murder, and I publish books full of murder. So I don't think you can make the mistake of thinking just because I put something in a book, I endorse it in the real world.
Right,
We also have motorcycle crashes and things like that. I don't want there to be motorcycle crashes in front of me in the real world. Uh, yeah, almost nothing I put in a gun hunting comic is something I'd want in the real world. Once in a while, they'll have a meal or something like that. They'll make a meal of raw fish and it'll be delicious. And I would say, sure, that you can do in the real world. That's fine.
right.
Yeah, short,
And
short of that.
there was a point when growing up where I never saw like in a comic book or a TV show or a movie
Uh-huh.
somebody actually using the restroom, but
Yeah.
with like comic books and TV shows like The Boys and
Hmm.
all these other, was it
Right,
like
more adult, trying to
yeah,
push boundaries. Yeah,
yeah,
I don't think we've done anything bathroom related in gun honey. You know, sometimes I like to push the edge of the envelope just for the fun of pushing it. But somehow I've never found bathroom stuff particularly interesting myself. It's not any kind of turn on for me, and I haven't found an occasion to use it. Of course, maybe I'm forgetting something, but I don't think there's been anything bathroom related in Gun Honey. But I am always looking for new settings, like we hadn't done something in a sauna for a while, so I did sauna. I like finding new countries to take them to. Joanna, the main character of Gun Honey, was born and grew up in Singapore and then fled as a refugee to the United States. So that's two countries. But after the first storyline, which basically takes place entirely in the US, she was off the coast of Malaysia. She was in Japan. She was in Ulaanbaatar in Mongolia. Now she's in Russia for the 4 issues of this series. We had her in Milan at one point. She's been in every kind of vehicle you can imagine, helicopters and trains and planes and so on, private planes. She's been in not so much Joanna, but Dahlia has been in Venice, leaping from one gondola to another in the Grand Canal, and in the Caribbean. In her last series, she was in the Turks and Caicos in the Caribbean. And at some point, you run out of countries to take people to, and it's not possible to come up with more, so you'll have to double up. But it's going to be Egypt in, I think the next Gun Honey will take us to Cairo. We haven't been there. So if anyone has suggestions, if any fans of the books have countries or towns or cities that they'd like us to explore, the world is big. It's not infinitely big, and we will run out of good, cool places to take our characters to. But I'm open to ideas.
What? Okay, so you haven't done any bathroom stuff, but
Yes.
what about the characters in these books, these female characters having to deal with the time of the month and their periods?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, there's a reference to it in the current issue, where in issue 2 of Gun Honey Doubles Down, where Joanna is needs to get into a prison in Siberia, and she decides that the best way to infiltrate this prison is to get thrown into the prison. And so she allows herself to get caught spying on this prison facility in Siberia, and when she's brought in, she's searched. She goes through a body cavity search, and there's a reference to I think the woman who's doing the body cavity search says something when she's searching her, like, "Oh, the Americans are making tampons out of metal now," because in the course of searching her, the searcher finds lock picks and other tools, and in fact, an entire gun, a very small gun, but an entire gun, um, lodged in different places on Joanna's body. Like she has lock picks in her hair, and she has something under her tongue in her mouth. And one of the places that one might hide something is vaginally. And so there is a reference to it, but I don't think any of the characters have been expressly stated to be on their period during one of our adventures. Presumably they have been. We've done 7 series and they've taken place at all times of the year, so they must take place at all times of the month. That's an interesting question. I probably should. Yes, I should
Like,
absolutely
how would
deal with
they deal? Like, how would each
that.
of those characters deal? Like, oh, I have
Well,
to do a
you
mission, but now I'm like, I'm cramping and I'm like craving chocolates from Berlin, but I'm like across the country. How am I gonna get these chocolates that I crave that I can only get in Berlin?
I think you might. Well, maybe you're lucky and your mission takes you to Berlin. That would be great. If not, if you're in New York, you can probably find German chocolate somewhere. But I think the answer is, if you're a professional, you suck it up and you do your job because it's your job, and you don't necessarily like it very much, but you do it, even if you're not feeling well. But I think that would be a fine thing to bring up. I think that's an excellent aspect of real life that people have to deal with, and I think you're right. So in the next one I write, I'll put it in.
Awesome. I
That's a
very much
great idea.
appreciate it. So you are a New Yorker,
Yes,
and
almost.
you guys have probably got the coolest mayor right
Yeah,
now.
new mayor Mamdani, as you know, I think he's been like national news, even though he's only the mayor of one city. It's a big city, but it's still just one city. He's in his first 100 days. I think the jury's still out. We'll see how he's got a 6-year term. You think that as a New Yorker I would know how long the mayor's term is, but I actually don't remember.
Right.
Probably too early to judge a guy based on his first 100 days, and it's not an easy job. So I'm prepared for him to be
I-
good, but if he's not good, then he's
Is,
bad.
is
We'll see.
is there any policies that you've
Uh-huh.
heard of that are either hindering or going to be a pro for your business of publishing and writing and being a
Not that
writer?
I'm
And
aware of. It's funny. We're based in New York. That is, I'm based in New York. I say we, but the hard case crime offices are zero staff. It's me. It's just me, and my co-founder Max Phillips is in Dublin, Ireland. Titan Books and Titan Comics is based in London. This is a modern enterprise, and you don't have to be on the same continent in order to work together. Obviously,
right,
we have things like this, and so although I'm in New York, it's very much an international operation. sort of like Joanna and Dahlia are international operatives. We're also international operatives in that sense. And so I don't think I've heard about any policies that are particularly targeting, good or bad, that are targeting the publishing industry. And I'm not sure it would affect us much if there were, because the actual printing happens mostly in the UK, and the distribution. We use Random House, the big book publishing company, to distribute our books.
Right.
But they in turn work with booksellers all over the country, and frankly outside the country too. Our books are available in Canada and they're available elsewhere. So I don't think the policies that the mayor has announced are mostly things like he wants to open in parts of New York City where there aren't good grocery stores, with
Right.
good prices for especially people who have low incomes and need to buy basic necessities of life, and they don't have any store near them where they can buy them or buy them for an affordable price. He wants to introduce that. That sounds great. I'm all in favor of that. I don't think that has any connection to the publishing of comic books or crime novels, unless these grocery stores would like in the old days, back in the 40s and 50s, you used to have wire spinner
Yeah.
racks.
No. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
If Mom Donnie would like to have cool crime novels in spinner racks in his grocery stores, I would be delighted. Uh, Oh, look at that. Hang on, guys. I am going to take a pause for just 1 second to be able to read something that my daughter, who I adore, just handed me. Let me see. Um, I am going to ask you to bring me my telephone, which should be plugged into the charger on my desk. So, my wife, who is a novelist, a fantasy novelist of some renown, her name is Naomi Novik, and writes very popular fantasy novels, is traveling right now, and she has uh, sent me a note say through my daughter, saying that she needs a little bit of help. So I may in fact have to cut this short,
No. No.
depending on
No. We've
how.
been going for over almost an
Well, we
hour.
took a while to get started, so I don't mind that we ran over.
No. No.
And
Yeah.
I
We
could talk to
we've
you for
we've
hours.
probably been going for at least an hour talking. It's eight.
Oh,
It's
for sure.
9:45. So we could definitely cut this if need to.
I
And
apologize because
no. No.
I
No. 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 It's totally fine. Um, but um, we have I just want to recap
uh,
the
yes,
the
please.
mega the was it the mega size issue number 1 is out now. Issue
That's out
3
now.
comes out on the
Issue three comes
22nd.
hang on 1 second. Issue three comes out in Forbidden Planet, based in New York, but they will ship to you worldwide, and that comes out at Forbidden Planet on August 19th. It comes out in all other stores across the country and the world on August 26th. And then issue four will be a month later. The graphic novel collected edition will be in January. And then the new series, whose title I can't tell you yet, is coming out, I think, next April. We'll see. We're still drawing that one. So I
Wonderful.
do apologize. My poor wife is locked out of something, out of state, and I need to help her get into it. So I am going to sign off with apologies to everyone, especially everyone who had such a hard time getting into the podcast in the first place because of all the echoey sound. But it turned out great in the end, and we'll do it again. We'll
Yeah,
find another day to do another
definitely.
podcast.
Thank you so much again, Charles. I very much appreciate you. Have hopefully everything goes well on
I'm
your
sure
end.
everything will be fine. We'll fix
And
it.
uh, and
I
I
appreciate that, and have a great remainder of the evening. And
you
absolutely,
too.
let's plan another one of these.
Thank you so much. Have a
Thanks.
wonderful day.
You too.
All right, guys. Thank you. You know what? I'm gonna end this call. Where am I? Where's my thing? End call. Uh, chat. 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 Um, everybody. Let me change this. Double tap. Double tap. Double tap. Double tap. Double tap. Oh, wrong one. Close this. I need this. I need backgrounds. Background 8, please. Select. Background 8. Woo! We back in there. Like swimwear. Okay, guys. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for Charles for hanging out with me. Oh my gosh. I can't believe I actually got to sit down and talk to him. That was amazing. Literally, like, amazing. And sorry if you couldn't hear me talk. Um, like I said, I have been having trouble doing these podcasts. Technical difficulties, like the universe doesn't want me to do podcasts, but I'm going to still keep trying to do podcasts. Um, Next podcast, I hope to be talking with Oscar and Rob of Slayblade um, next week. Um, Sometime, and then also the developers of Royalty Free for All, the new platformer indie fighting game that's only $7.99 right now until the 25th. So definitely pick that up. Um, and then also today, Mount Zodiac Mountain, which I streamed yesterday. You can check out that stream. That just dropped today. Let me look and see, and I will tell you how much it dropped for. I just need to open up Steam real quick. Go to my library. Zodiac Mountain is out today. Out today. In Oh wait, it says this item is coming soon. But oh my gosh, uh, I thought it was supposed to come out today. It's the 13th. Interesting. Okay, I it was supposed to come out today. Um, but yeah, I didn't even get to talk to Charles about Agent 64. It's a great game, and asking him when we're gonna get a gun hunting game because I would love a gun hunting game. Um, but yeah, guys, thank you guys so much. You know what? And that issue that we were just talking about, let me get back over here. The handy cam. There we go. Handy cam. Handy D cam. So, is this issue right here? This I got this today from Black Cat Records and Comics. Um, I was supposed to get that giant fifth anniversary issue, but I did not. So, but yeah, Gun Honey doubles down with the Punisher, um, Amazing Spider-Man cover. So variant, it was awesome. I love it. But yeah, uh, I'm super excited to get this. I'm super excited to own it. Thank you again, Charles, for hanging out. I very much appreciate you. You are awesome, and I am very honored and humbled that you actually even sat down with me, the small creator that I am. But I'm gonna go, guys. I have had a day, and yeah, um, thank you again for everyone who chimed in. Thank you for everyone who watched. I very much appreciate it. We have been streaming for 2 hours, and I'm out of here, guys.